We have uh, quite a number of presenters this afternoon, starting from Professor Geeta Subramaniam and Rubaiyar Hassan Khan. We are starting right now at 2 o'clock, and we are going to listen to Geeta and Rubaiyar talking about using -21 to measure the psychological stress of Malaysians during COVID-19. Right. I think you have 15 minutes to make your presentation. We have a little bit of time to discuss the issues afterwards. It's over to you.
Dr. Ranjit and organizers, the student called Liang Ai Ping will be presenting on my behalf.
All right.
As I'm not in Bangkok now. Sorry.
Yeah. So is the student present now?
Yeah, she's there.
Yes.
Organizer, can you please call her?
Yeah, she's here.
Thank you. Hi, Dr. Ranjit.
Hi, good afternoon to you. Right, you could start.
Excellent.
We do not hear you.
Afternoon. My name is Liang Ai. I'm from Faculty of Education, Language, Ecology, and Music of the Universiti Malaysia. I'm new PhD.
I'm afraid the sound is not clear, loud enough. Can you all hear her?
Very difficult.
Yes.
Okay, I'll start. I'm a new PhD student who just started my PhD study. This paper entitled Using -22 to Measure the Psychological Stress of Malaysians During COVID-19. It was written together jointly by 4 authors: Professor Geeta, co-author Omku Atina, another co-author Mr. Rubaiyar Khan from Australia, and myself, Liang Ai Ping. I'll be presenting the first half of this paper, followed by Mr. Rubaiyar Khan, who will take it over from me. As we all know, the COVID-19 interrupted the whole world in May 2019. In Malaysia, there was a movement control order, and this control led to a lot of psychological impact among Malaysians. Whether working or not, they all affected. So, what's the problem? What's the issue in this? Their livelihood was affected, many went depression, and the mental health was affected. What are the objectives of this study? 2 objectives. The first objective is to examine the relationship between demographic factors and the stress level during the conditional lockdown in Malaysia during COVID-19. And the second objective is to investigate whether risk perception, individual behavior, mental health, and the media usage will have an effect on the psychological impact among Malaysians during COVID-19. This is just an introduction To follow up, I would like to invite Mr. Rubaya Khan from Curtin University to take it over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aipeng. With the permission from our chair, Dr. Ranjit, I would like to start my part of the presentation. I think, can I have the next slide, please? So originally, obviously, there has been a surge of understanding COVID-19 impacts in the literature. And what we did was we tried to understand in the Malaysian context. So we in principle, we actually focused on the specific literature that was available in the Malaysian context. And we saw that there were some specific indications that the government psychological hotline over that period of lockdown received 11,791 calls within 6 months' time. So there was a problem happening. So there was a psychological impact that is happening within that particular area. The police headquarters actually went ahead and reported 1 suicide a day. So this is something that led us to an understanding, is there a link with the demographic factors within that population? The stress level, like Faraz 2020 has actually reported that the stress level is influenced by the demographic factors. So we wanted to understand the Malaysian context to it. I can share my experience with my personal experience in working in Australia. Obviously, there has been reports about a specific group of people being more stressed about the COVID-19 lockdowns. So the second objective that was to understand the health guidelines and how people reacted to this in terms of the stress and mental state that is more long-term effect. We included literatures like Guo and Combs, who talks about the individual behavior such as adherence to public health guidelines can also be influenced by various factors such as risk perceptions, social norms, and the personal beliefs. So our research design, keeping in mind the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, led us to believe that we need to understand the demographic factors, but at the same time, we need to understand how the pandemic and the other stresses are impacting the mental health of this particular population. And how can we help them? Can the media use influence the risk perceptions and individual behavior by shaping people's perceptions and the pandemic at its risks? So looking at this, I think, can I have the next slide, please?
Yes.
So the research was actually conducted using a purposive sampling for a specific age groups, conducting it among the Malaysians. They were actually given a self-administered questionnaire, and we used, out of the 400, only 352 questionnaires were usable, who has completed the entire thing. The guidelines that we met was the DAS-29, the scale that was developed in 2021. It actually measures the depression, anxiety, and stress among the individuals that we are measuring. And the questionnaire was adapted and customized for the Malaysian population. And we used the Likert scales to understand the effect of COVID-19 for this particular sample. With the demographic factors that we looked into was age, gender, marital status, ethnicity, household income, employment status. And this is how we actually try to understand that what are the demographic factors, but at the same time, our objective too, we looked into whether these people, the respondents, have lost their jobs because of the COVID-19 as a stressor point, and what is the type of household members that they have got. looking at this, looking at the results, I think, can I have the next slide, please? So to meet the understanding of the next part, that is the results and findings, when we were understanding the relationship between the demographic factors and the stress level, we identified 4 different types of demographic factors that may have influenced, that has influenced the stress level of these individuals, which is gender, educational background, employment status, and losing of a job or wages. If we look at the table, I think, can I have the next slide, please? We will see that at the significance level of 99%, or in some cases, if we are considering a little bit more alignment, significant level of 95% or even 90%, we have identified these particular relationships within our results. So what does that mean? It means that, I think, can I have the previous slide, please? The previous slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So what we can see that in our responses, in our paper, we have described it better. I hope that you will have the time to actually read the paper. We are talking about a specific type of gender that influences the specific stress level, higher stress level. And in our case, we identified in Malaysians the females who were working in a specific type of jobs, that is fixed jobs, and they lost their jobs, has actually been affected with a higher stress level within this particular sample. All right, so moving a little bit further, when we were looking at our objective 2, that is the media usage, what we saw that the risk perceptions, the people who have high risk will have a high level of depression, anxiety, and stress, according to the DAS-21. When we measured it, we saw that if there is a high level of stress, they were actually being affected with depression, anxiety, or stress. And when we are measuring their health, mental health condition, those who are highly mentally affected may experience high level of depression, anxiety, and stress. So there is a wider long-term effect among our sample, and we have identified that relationship in this particular research. Thank you very much. I think the next slide, please. So what's our conclusion? Our conclusion is that using the chi-score analysis, we see that the females with lower educational achievement and working in fixed jobs had higher stress levels during the COVID-19. And when we did the regression analysis, we understood that the risk perception and the mental health had an effect on the psychological impact among the Malaysians during the COVID-19 pandemic. So what are the recommendations that we actually come forward with this particular research is that the government should continue to provide initiatives such as the targeted financial help, which will help ease the burden of the affected people, and counseling sessions for those who are psychologically affected that may reduce their specific impact of this COVID-19 scenario. And since the COVID-19 affected vulnerable individuals such as schools, colleges, universities, institutions, and workplace, we should maintain and adapt to more flexible working arrangements by allowing their students and staff to have hybrid learning and working environment like we are doing now. We are actually conducting a conference globally, I guess. And this is the kind of flexibility that can reduce the impact of this kind of stress throughout the world in the near future. Thank you very much, Aiping. Next slide. So the suggestions for our future research, we wanted to more understanding of the current situation of the Malaysians. 2 years down the road, it may be possible to actually review the specific findings by having another set of surveys of these particular samples. And the contribution that this paper establishes that WoS-21 instrument was a measure of long-term impact of stress over the target population. We would like to acknowledge the funding from for this research and conference, which is supported by the Segi University Kota Damansara. And thank you very much, Dr. Ranjit, and for allowing us to present our findings. We really appreciate your cooperation. And we thank you, everyone who's listening to our presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rubaya. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Geeta and Rubaya, for that wonderful presentation on the effect of COVID-19 on mental health. I think the research has been well conceptualized, and it's very timely and relevant. And I think the findings are also very interesting and useful, as you suggested, that we are already following some of the recommendations that you have already made. Since we need to discuss what you have done, I would like to open the discussion for the audience, if there is anyone who has any question to be raised.
Can I actually have a question myself? Sorry,
Yes.
I probably missed that part, but I'm curious, during your survey, what was the area? I mean, were you concerned about the capital, or were you trying to take into the consideration more remote areas? That's the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Geeta, would you like to respond to the sample geographic area, please?
I'm really so sorry, I couldn't hear the question, Dr. Ranjit. Rubaya, can you repeat, please?
The question was the sample coming from rural area or principally from the city area?
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, thank you again, Dr. Ranjit, Rubaya, and I it was very unfortunate that due to unforeseen circumstances, I couldn't come to Bangkok. The survey was done in late 2020, during the ending part of COVID and MCO in Malaysia. So we used the online measure to disseminate the questionnaire. So population, if you ask, according to rural and urban, is like about 60% urban and 40% rural, because those who have handphones only were able to answer the questionnaire.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that clarification and the question. Is there anyone else who wants to raise any questions? We have limited time. I think if there are any other questions that could be raised afterwards. Let's move on to the second presentation. Thank you very much for that very well conceptualized, very executed research. Our next presenter. Yes. Thank you. Our next presenter is Ahmed Musaid Ahmed Sudin. Who's going to talk about effects of contrast polarity towards eye fixation rates when reading on smartphones. Seems to be a very relevant and interesting topic. Over to you, Ahmed. You're on.
Okay, hello.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Please quickly go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon to everybody. I'm Murshid. I'm going to present our research on the effect of the contrast polarity towards the eye fixation rate when reading. So, can you hear me?
Yes, please. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Thank you.
You're clear.
All right. So, when a person, go to the next slide, please. Next slide. So when a person does an activity, actually the eye moves in a consistent pattern of the fixation and, no, second slide. before that. Second slide. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So since the eye movement come prior to an action such as a hand movement, so the oculomotor system actually must get the new instruction ahead of the arms and hands for the motor system. So during or before the end of the previous actions, the central executive in front of the brain will supply the oculomotor system and the motor system of the arms together with the information regarding object's identity or location. So the action to be performed and the checking action is required as well. So during the process, the eyes will first identify the object's location either by the combination of the object's memory or direct vision. So the eyes will be directed towards the object prior any contact. So once the object located, an action will be initiated. So this is the one of the interesting things that interact the eye tracking technology, where the introduction of the advanced eye tracking technology has allowed easy analysis of the eye movement pattern, which provide better data quality and higher data validity. Right, next slides. So the increasing demand of an electronic devices such as smartphones has been a worldwide phenomenon and becoming part of integral of our daily life. So nowadays we can see that the various features in social media that use negative contrast polarity concept were created over the positive contrast polarity concept to increase visual comfort during the screen time. But still now we don't really know the effect, whether it's give more towards the good benefit or the otherwise. Polarity contrast can be defined as a dark letters on the light background, whereas negative polarity contrast is a light letters on the dark background. So positive contrast polarity features is actually can cause the pupil to constrict. So in turn, the readers will experience less aberration and reduce the distortion of the visual input. Conversely, with the negative contrast, it will cause the pupil to dilate and produce more aberration and visual distorting when reading. So the higher aberration of myopic eyes have been extensively studied actually, and we found that the myopes have a greater level of certain higher order aberrations, particularly following the reading. So the effect of this higher order aberration is directly related to the pupil size. So some of the research, they stated the hypothesis that the higher the order aberration, the higher the changes in pupil dilation. So in practice, this means that the higher order aberration associated with myopia and reading will have more influence on the image quality of the myopic eyes due to increasing pupil size. So in return, activities such as reading in poor light condition would be good example of a situation where the good example where the high order aberration that I said just now would give a significant impact on the retinal image qualities. So theoretically, it can be stated that the reading using negative contrast polarity in the dark illumination will cause higher fixation duration and also fixation number in myopic population due to the aberration and pupil dilation, which are experienced by the myopic eyes. Next slide. So since the prevalence of the social media usage in the different contrast polarity in smartphone is increasing, so this study aims to investigate the effect of the contrast polarity on the smartphone towards the eye movement pattern among the myope and emmetrope population, both in the bright and dark illumination. Next slide. So here, during the experiment, we do a thread of a Twitter considered of a few paragraphs which display on a smartphone screen. The smartphone, we use the Samsung J1 model with 4.5-inch screens and a resolution of 480 times 800 pixels. So the brightness display was fixed at 50% to provide comfort for participants. So the movement recording was accomplished by the decoupled eye tracker, which the head-mounted infrared eye tracker measured in the fixation duration and fixation number. So we used the adequate sampling frequency of 50 Hertz to detect the fixation and the fixation duration. And then the two videos recorded by the dual camera pupil and corneal reflection of the subject and laptop computer interpreted using by the lab software. So before we start, we do the screening procedures to fulfill all the inclusion and exclusion criteria. The subject that failed screening procedure were excluded. And then before proceeding, do the data measurement, informed consent was obtained from every participant after a verbal explanation of the procedure of the study was given. So the screening process we conducted include the case history, visual acuity, subjective reflection, Fourier test using Howard and amplitude of accommodation. So this is to make sure that they are to be included in the research. So at the beginning, the participants were informed regarding the nature of the study and asked to read and sign the informed consent. So the experiment then done binocularly with the best corrected visions. And for the purpose of the research, participants were introduced towards 4 different conditions, which the A for the positive contrast bright illumination, B positive contrast in dark illumination, C for the negative contrast in dark illumination, and D negative contrast in bright illumination. So these 4 different conditions were randomly selected. And then patient also instructed to look at the distance for 1 minute after reading and scrolling the trait for 30 seconds for each condition. The performance of the fixation number and fixation duration were evaluated by the eye tracking system, which objectively executed of the eye tracking and performance between 4 conditions. So next slide, please. So for the result, you can see I put the graph here. The graph showed that both of the number of the fixation duration and fixation were recorded highest in condition B. Meanwhile, the lowest record of number of fixation fell under condition D, while the lowest record of the duration of fixation fell under condition C. So in comparison between emmetrope and myope, it shows that emmetrope, the highest number of fixation was recorded in condition A, while the lowest number of the fixation was in condition C. So, but meanwhile, for the myopic subjects, the highest number of fixation fell under condition B, while the lowest number of fixation was in condition C. So beside the duration of fixation, the finding was also similar to the parameter of the number of fixation, where we can see the emmetropic subject showed highest reading in the condition A, and the lowest reading in the condition C. And the myopic recorded the highest in the duration, fixation duration in condition B, while the reading condition, while the lowest reading in condition C. So next slide. So we can see here, both positive and negative contrast can be recommended when presenting text to users on the screen and provide good readability. So these findings were correlated with our result that showed no statistically significant difference in the eye movement pattern, which are number of fixation and duration of fixation using both positive and negative contrast polarity. So it also showed there's no statistically significant difference, which is P more than 0.05 in the eye movement pattern, which are number of fixation and duration of fixation using the both positive or negative contrast polarity. However, positive polarity showed less number of fixation and smaller fixation duration. And then it also showed that emmetrope will exhibit greater reading ability with less fixation number and fixation duration in negative contrast polarity, which compared to myopes in the both bright and ambient illumination. Next slide. So as the conclusion, we can say that no significant effect when reading using both positive and negative contrast polarity in both bright and dark conditions. And also there is a significant effect between myopic and emmetropic subject when reading in bright illumination using a positive polarity display. So we would say that imetropic subjects showed a higher number of session and duration of fixation. So we, as a conclusion, imetropic eye movement efficiency seems a bit superior, possibly due to the lower spherical order aberration as the pupil decrease in bright illumination. So with that all, I think I will end my presentation, and I'm open for any question from the floor.
Thank you very much, Ahmed, for that very concise and precise presentation on the effect of contrast polarity towards eye fixation. I think it's a very relevant and interesting topic, particularly given the fact that we are all glued to the computer screens and mobile phone screens these days. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to understand how eye fixation movements actually occur. I will open the forum for discussion if there is anyone who has any questions to raise. Please, anyone who has a question? Doesn't look like there are any questions. I just want to raise a small point of observation. The issue that you're looking at is related to mobile phones, but in the presentation, you were actually showing video screens. Were they similar in terms of the resolutions to make the judgments about use of smartphones?
Oh, thank you for the really good question. From the research, they found that it might be some difference between the different video, I mean like laptops, but why we just, because this is kind of like a pilot study, so we just try to do it with the most common things that actually influence the people, like because I would say everybody here now are using the smartphone. So that's the most major things that we are concerned about. So in the future research, we actually suggested already that we also need to do the different effect on the different kind of screen. So that should be more benefit for people, and they don't know which one is actually the best for them to use with.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that clarification. And thank you very much for that very interesting and relevant topic and the research that you have conducted, which is going to be very helpful for the medical field and the people itself.
Thank you very much.
Thank you indeed. Let's move on to the next presenter, who is Aslinda Fuad, who is going to talk to us about current physiotherapy approaches for patellofemoral pain syndrome in the knees. It's over to you. You have 10 minutes, please.
Hello, good afternoon. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. So my name is Aslinda. I'm a PhD student, so I'm going to present the slides with my another PhD students. Son, are you here? Son?
Who are you looking for?
Son? There's another presenter with me online actually.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So Nuncha, are you here?
I'm here.
Alright.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Can you put up here, please?
Okay. So this is my topic, current physiotherapy approaches for patellofemoral pain syndrome. So, Son? Can you take it over from here? The introduction?
Please, move on.
I'm very grateful for the opportunity and giving me next to introduce the effects of physiotherapy management, commonly athletic and young people. 12 weeks after treatment in exercise therapy, down and physical functions up in PFPS, but 13% of patients still have problems due to kinesiophobia and poor education. PFPS causes kinesiophobia, low quality of life, and impaired physical function, which increase the risk of bonding sports. Blood flow restriction and physiotherapy management has been proven to kidney discomfort, but their effects on their own are uncertain. Recommend the patient education and KEC failure prevents to PFPS, but nothing was known about how physiotherapy manages patients' education.
Okay.
Next.
Alright, so now I'm going to take over. As you can see, physiotherapy management have a few types, which is such as therapeutic exercises, like the common physiotherapy exercise, and the newest method, which is the blood flow restrictions. Later I will explain what is blood flow restrictions. Dry needling, palpate vibrations, and patient's educations. So this physiotherapy management can actually help to improve the physiological functions, quality of life, and the psychological aspects. So the effects of it will help to reduce, all the physiotherapy management can help to reduce the pain, increase muscle strength, improve muscle flexibility, increase muscles bulk, increase quality of life, and prevent kinesiophobia. I'm not sure if all of us understand what is kinesiophobia, but I will explain. Kinesio means it's a movement, and a phobia is actually scared of movement. So the term of kinesiophobia is scared of movement. Okay, so this research recommended patients' education, Patelos recommended the patient's educations and kinesiophobia preventions to improve PFPS, but not know how about the physiotherapy manage the patient's educations. This study also examined if combine the physiotherapy management with educations and reducing kinesiophobia will improve PFPS treatment. Okay, I have two objectives in my study, which is the one is to identify the current physiotherapy management for patellofemoral pain syndrome, and second, to determine the best practice for patellofemoral pain syndrome based on the evidence. As this is my method, so the design that I'm using is systemic review, and I'm using the PICO, which is the populations, is the patellofemoral pain. Interventions, I'm using the physiotherapy management, blood flow restrictions, educations, and kinesiophobia. For the comparison, I will use the pre and post interventions. For the outcome measures, I'm using numerical pain rating, KUS, PF, Tampa scale, handheld dynamometer, knee muscle performance test, and real-time ultrasound. So for the search strategy, I'm using the Google Scholar, PubMed, and ScienceDirect. For the keywords, you can see there's a lot here. And then the appraisal tools, I'm using the McMaster Critical Review form for quantitative studies. As you can see, there's a total score of 16, which the interpretations is here, under here. So for the inclusion criteria, I'm following the PICO criteria, as you can see on the PICO. And any study except the systemic review, English, and full text. And exclusions criteria, I excluded the abstract data keywords that are related to this research topics, unclear articles, and non-English paper. For the data analysis, I do the data extractions, appraisal, and reporting using the Prisma. So this is my Prisma flow. As you can see, the study included was 12,459. But after I record and after duplicated everything, okay, the study included in my systemic review was 11. So this is the results for everything. You can see here. So I just go fast forward. So for the objective, for the physiotherapy management, the therapeutic exercise have strengthening and stretching, which increase the strength and flexibility. It shows that effective in 7 studies, which all the results shows a consistent finding with the effective of the strengthening exercises, which is agreeable that the therapeutic exercises can increase muscle strength and reduce pain in patellofemoral pain syndrome. A well-executed exercises program will increase muscle capillary perfusion, strength, endurance, and bone density by increase the muscles hypertone and the bone density. For the blood flow restrictions, kinesiophobia, and patients' educations, when we combine these three, it will increase the muscle bulk, reduce kinesiophobia, and have a better understanding of the patient's own conditions. Okay, as compared to the traditional quadriceps exercise, to blood flow restrictions and increase strength and reduce pain in both studies. Joint pain can cause the kinesiophobia, and more evidence is needed to prevent it by the strengthening and educating the patients. Blood flow restrictions is actually increase the strength and increase the strength, hypertrophy, and improve the capillary perfusion. Okay, blood flow restrictions is exercises. When you want to perform the exercise, you need to do a cuff, and we should cuff your joints and your muscles to reduce the blood perfusions in your muscles. Okay, for the best practice for PFPS, combined therapy is already proven by 11 studies shows that the combined therapies actually reduce the pain and improve the physical functions. And PFPS, compared to the PFPS traditional exercises alone, and then the trigger points, dry needling, can help to reduce the overuse or strain muscles can develop, which was developed by the myofascial trigger point, which are irritable and painful because muscle fiber are overstimulates a trigger points which can restore the blood flow and relieve stress. For the power plate, rapidly increase circulations, blood flow, and hormonal productions to increase performances. For the strengthening exercises, only one study found that strengthening exercises reduce kinesiophobia in knee conditions, particularly the OA. So the researcher assumes that the physiotherapy should involve all the physiotherapy management such as BFR, strengthening the core, quadriceps, strengthening, hamstring and quadriceps flexibility, and kinesio preventions, plus the patient's education of their condition. So for the two studies was done on the flexibility, and then it shows that the flexibility exercise are also important in reducing the pain and improving the PFPS conditions and improve the sports performances. For the educations, why as the physio we need to focus on educating patients, because the patient's education should help the patients to personalize and scientifically based workout routine and educations on specific on the patient's pain anatomy, physiological preventions, and exercises could provide the patient's understanding of their own conditions and prevent the kinesiophobia. Patients' education should avoid medical jargon, break down the information on instructions into small concrete steps, limits visits to 3 key points or tasks, and assess comprehensions using the teach-back cycle to enhance the patient's understanding. So this is my conclusion. The effect of the therapeutic exercises, BFR, patients' educations, and kinesiophobia on pain, physical functioning, daily activities, and quality of life have rarely been studied. So high-quality experiments are needed to evaluate each exercises, which the patellofemoral pain syndrome benefiting, and compare the finding. Okay, this systemic review found that the interventions improve patellofemoral pain syndrome patients, pain, physical functions, and kinesiophobia. BFR and strengthening may increase the patellofemoral pain syndrome and functions and increase patients' educations. The prior study managed patellofemoral pain syndrome successfully but had significant shortcomings. So the report recommends a further experimental investigations of the interventions, which I will do it in future. So thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much. It's an interesting study as to what have been studied, and you are saying there is a lot of scope of areas that haven't been studied, and therefore future researchers must focus attention to them, which is a good finding. I would like to open the floor for discussion before I make any comment. Is there anyone who wants to raise any question about the findings from the literature about the use of current physiotherapy techniques to deal with patellofemoral pain syndrome?
Hello, yes, I wanted to ask. Yes, please. So, do you think this research that you're doing for the future, do you think that this can be, what's it called?
Improve the patient's conditions?
No, do you think this will be around the world, the research that you're doing right now, do you think it will be presented around the world? Because the last review, the last research was 2021?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So do you think?
Okay, because the research that I'm doing right now is undergoing. So the kinesiophobia and patellofemoral pain syndrome are very limited. It's mostly focused on the lumbar, as I mentioned in a previous paper. So that's why I'm doing the research now, which I combine the kinesiophobia and patients' educations by hoping that this method, the newest method, will help to improve the patient's conditions, especially the patellofemoral pain syndrome, because the patellofemoral pain syndromes will affect the children more than the adults. So right now we need to focus more on the the children health rather than the adult, elderly. So I think it will give a good impact to the world if we do it properly, the study.
Thank you. Thank you for that question and the answer. I want to make an observation, really speaking. I think there is a kind of incompatibility between what you are saying in your title and what you have actually accomplished. Because in your title, you are saying current physiotherapy approaches, whereas what you have actually done is a literature survey through which you have discovered what aspects have been researched and found in the current literature and the gaps in that literature in terms of what has not been focused on. So I find there is a bit of incompatibility between the two things. But nevertheless, I think your study was useful in the sense of understanding what researchers have looked at into physiotherapy approaches and what effects it does produce to the people in terms of improving quality of life. Thank you very much indeed. Let's move on and to the next presenter, who is Nasrul Hadi Ismail, who's going to talk to us about nutrition status and factors affecting food intake among hospitalized patients in hospitals in Al Sultan Abdullah. This is related to food and malnutrition. Over to you.
Alright, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good afternoon. I greet to everyone. So I'm Hadi from UiTM Malaysia. So I will be presenting our research on nutritional status and factors affecting food intake among hospitalized patients at Hospital Al Sultan Abdullah UiTM. Hospital Al Sultan Abdullah, or in short we call it HASA, is a teaching hospital managed under our university UiTM. So this is the front view of our hospital. This hospital is newly operated in 2021, in April 2021. So that's why I would like to carry out this survey to improve the food service operation in our hospital. So my team in this research consists of Ain Husna and Mazrin Kamrozaman from our own department, as well as Ditasari Putriana from Universitas Aisyah Yogyakarta, Indonesia. Okay, I believe every hospital or acute care service in Southeast Asia provide meals to patients. So hospital food service impact a patient overall impression and satisfaction when they discharge. So they will have this perceived and experience when they discharge from the hospital. So by meals or dietary intake may lead may improve the recovery or recuperation of the patient, as well as the need effect or malnutrition can occur during hospitalization period. So it is important to identify what are the issues relating to food service in hospital. So we carried out this research to determine, the first objective is to determine the malnutrition risk or malnutrition status among hospitalized patients in our setting, as well as to identify the factors that impact nutritional adequacy among hospitalized patients. So we can, from the findings, we can recommend or suggest to our management to improve the service. So as a bit on a literature review, food service in the hospital is crucial component of patient care, as it aids the recuperation and improve health status as well as recovery process during hospitalization. By providing or for the patient side, by taking adequate nutrition of food, they may improve or accelerate their recovery. While if the food is not taken care of well, the malnutrition may occur among our patient or hospitalized patient. We use this simplified or rapid tools to measure the nutritional status for our patient. Because malnutrition can be linked to poor patient outcome such as increased infection and complication rates, muscle loss, poor wound healing if in surgical patient, as well as extended hospital stay and increased mobility, and the worst is death. So in Malaysia, throughout from 2010 to 2020, there are various studies being carried out to identify the malnutrition status among our hospitalized patients. So it was ranging between 21 to 55% from our hospitalized patient. So it's quite similar or consistent to global data. And a lot of studies being carried out to understand the factors affecting food intake among hospitalized patients. So these are 5 factors that affect the food intake among hospitalized patients, which is organizational and food quality, which related to the operators, the food service operators, patient illness, food choices, and eating difficulties, which more due to patients' issues. So this the methodology that we use to carry out this survey. Obviously the survey was carried out among hassas patient. The participant age were ranging between 18 to 16 years old, and we exclude those patients from pediatric ward because of different types of food being served, as well as patients from psychiatric and obstetric and gynecology wards, because there are various pharmacotreatment involved that will affect their nutrition status as well as food intake. And also we include critically ill patients and patients that on procedure that not being allowed to eat, ventilated, or patient on trial diet, as well as patients who are using parenteral or enteral nutrition. So this study was carried out between February to July 2022, and we obtained the ethical clearance from our own university's research ethics committee before the survey is carried out. So we disseminate the structured questionnaire to our participants, which include two sections. Section A is the social demographic characteristic, and Section B is the factors, the questionnaire on factors affecting food intake among hospitalized patients. Then we use this NRS, the Nutritional Risk Tool 2022, to identify the malnutrition status among our participants, which include 5 questions. And lastly, we carried out this anthropometric measurement, where we measure our participants' mid-upper arm circumference as well as the ulnar length. Then these two measurements we compute into an equation to measure patients' weight and height. Then subsequently we measured patients' body mass index. While we do not directly measure their body weight and height, because we want to minimize the risk of fall among our participants. So this mid-upper arm circumference and ulnar length measurement can be done while patients were lying or sitting on the bed. Then for statistical analysis, we use descriptive analysis, and we use... Come again, Doctor?
Yeah, please go ahead.
And we employed Pearson correlation coefficient test to identify the association between body mass index, the nutrition status, and also the malnutrition risk score. So these are our findings. The demographic findings. Also, majority of our participants were male, and majority are from Malays race, and only about 4% from Indian and Chinese. This is because most of the population that reside around the hospitals are Malays. And majority of the participants were from medical discipline ward, but we also have a few patients from surgical orthopedics discipline. And a majority of the patients haven't had a visit to dietitian prior to admission. It's only about 11% of our patients had dietitian visit prior to admission. From nutritional status data, these are the tabulation of patients' body mass index, as well as the malnutrition risk score. So about 40% of our participants were classified as either overweight and obese, regardless the classes, class 1, 2, and 3. So this is quite consistent to our national data, where about 50% of our population were overweight or obese. As you know, Malaysia is champion in terms of overweight and obese prevalence that we are not proud of. And in terms of malnutrition risk score, only about 30% of our participants were at risk of malnutrition, regardless the classification, either low, moderate, or high risk. As long as they scored well, so they are considered as at risk, but we segregate into 3 classifications. But however, this data is quite okay compared to our national data, which the highest is 55% of prevalence of malnutrition, but in our case is only about 30%. In terms of factors that affecting food intake, the highest was related to food taste differently. That this is related to patients' condition. A lot of study has mentioned that acute sickness may lead to taste changes among our among patients in hospital setting. Secondly is due to the food choices, where patients claim that they normally eat less compared to the food served in hospital setting. Means the food that being served to them during hospitalization is more than they what usually take at home. And the third highest factor that affected the food intake was do not have usual appetite. This is related to sickness that they experience during hospitalization as well. So as a result, to conclude our study, the prevalence of malnutrition were low in our hospital setting, as well as the quality of the food quality or satisfaction with food was found to be the most common barrier in food intake among our patients, as well as food choices and also effect of illness. But this study included the broad range in terms of patient age, because we have a small number of participants, so we cannot segregate according to different age between adult, middle adult, as well as geriatric patient. However, this data can provide additional prevalence to our national statistic in terms of malnutrition status, as well as the factors that affect food intake among hospitalized patients, especially for our own hospital management. They can use this data to improve their service. So with that, I thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nasrul, for that very interesting presentation about the nutritional status and factors that affect the food intake among the patients in hospitals. A small question, but before that, I would like to open the floor for discussion if anyone else has any questions from this particular piece of research. Anyone in the audience who has any issue that needs to be raised, please. Any questions? No, it doesn't look like there are any questions coming from the audience. I just have a small question I want to raise with you. Nutrition effect of nutrition state of patients will depend on other factors as well. And I was wondering the duration of the patients being in the hospital care should have played a role, a significant role, because if a patient stays a day or two, I wouldn't think that skipping a meal or two is going to have a serious consequence on nutrition status of patients. So why was not that considered as a potential factor in the effect of nutrition status of the patients, or was it considered, the duration of stay?
All right, you are a bit glitching, Dr. Ranjit, but I think your question is the duration is also a contributing factors to food intake. To nutrition status.
It affects nutrition. If food intake is affected, in a day or two stay in the hospital is unlikely to have a serious consequence, isn't it? So I would have thought that the duration must have been considered as a potential factor.
Yeah, exactly,
Yes.
Rajit. The duration of hospital stay do play a role, but from the literature, we can consider more than 1 day to be included in our survey.
All right. Thank you very much. Yes, I think there are serious issues in
All right,
terms
thank
of...
you. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next presenter, who is Serena Safari, who is going to talk to us about her research related to type of sitting posture and low back pain among the university students. It's a very common issue, and I'm glad that someone has actually looked at the issue of sitting long hours and the production of low back pain, which is prevalent among not just university students, but many others, including university professors and others, who are sitting in chairs for a very long period of time, particularly given the fact that since COVID, we have moved into online education and so on. Thank you very much, Serena. Let's start. You have 10 minutes.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Ranjit. Okay, so today I am Sarina, and I am from UiTM, inshallah. Yeah, and today I'll be presenting together with Lin Peng, which is one of my PhD students that originated from China. All right, so the title of my presentation today is about the types of study posture and development among university students. Okay, basically, this study was done during the COVID pandemic. It was in 2020. Yeah, and for the introduction, as what we know that during the COVID pandemic, the university has been forced to conduct the learning using the ODL, online distance learning, okay, whereby the students are forced to sit for a long period of time, and in fact, it happened to everyone, isn't it? Yeah, and this really forces students to use the computer, okay, to assist in their learning. Yeah. And as what we know, computer-related work increases sitting posture, especially the static sitting posture, or sustained sitting posture, okay, which also accommodates poor habitual postures among the students, which, could link to the presence of low back pain. Okay. What is low back pain? Is anyone here experiencing low back pain at the moment? Yeah, there are a few hands up there. Okay, right. As what we know that, almost all of us have been seated for quite long time today. Yeah, and these definitely, will increase the pressure in our knees. Okay, or that's fine. Yeah. All right. So basically, low back pain is refers to the pain at the back, okay, at the lumbar region, okay, whereby it exists between the 12th rib and the inferior gluteal fold. Okay, and the prevalence of low back pain among young adults, usually is about 13 to 30%. Okay, is what the research has said. And in fact, it's also increased. Among the students, and also among the elderly. All right. From the literature review, it has mentioned that seated for a long time leads to poor habitual posture. And as what we know that during all our students are exposed to prolonged sitting periods, for their course, daily course, their daily routine for the learning classes. Individuals sit for a long time adopt improper posture, leading to the static movement. However, no study has been reported on the types of sitting posture and low back pain. That's why this study has been conducted among the students. All right. The objective for our study were, the first one, to compare the time spent sitting among students with and without low back pain. And secondly, to determine the association between type of sitting posture and low back pain. And I would like to invite Lin to present on the methods of the study. Lin?
Okay, I'm here. This is a cross-sectional survey, and the sample size is 420. The participants from the students from the Faculty of Health Sciences, UiTM, who take a lab. And instruments are two questionnaires. The first one includes question about daily time spent sitting, user time for total sitting, and sitting habit adapted during sitting. The second questionnaire is Nordic musculoskeletal questionnaire, and the platform is Google Form via email and WhatsApp. The inclusion criteria is male and female, aged 19 to 24 years old, study in full-time and no other chronic disease. And including criteria is age less than 19 years old and more than 24 years old, and study in part-time mode. Work part family and no history of any particular disease, chronic disease. Includes respiratory, kidney, pelvic, gastrointestinal, and malignancy and any etc. problem. For the data analysis, demographic is use descriptive searching, and objective one is use independent detail analysis, and the objective two use the T-square analysis. Dr. Lee, continue.
Yeah, all right, thank you. Okay. So for the demographic data shows that the majority of students that currently with low back pain, which is more than 60% of the population. Okay, and most of them will sit more than 10 hours. Yeah, and also majority of them have seated in lumbar hyperlordotic posture. Right. For the comparison of the total time spent, we found that there is significant total time spent among those with low back pain and non-low back pain. And there is no association between the types of sitting posture among those with low back pain. And here we can say that the students has presented with high prevalence of low back pain. And majority of them have been seated more than 10 hours per day. And we also found that prolonged sitting without using a computer could be strongly related to low back pain. Why this happened? This could be because of the increased tension in the spinal column, or what we call as increased compression load, in between the intervertebral disc or intersegmental of the spines, and this basically will stimulate the receptors, or the receptors, and also the mechanoreceptors, which is the brain receptors that are involved together with movement, to detect the pain. Therefore, it develops the pain in the back. And for objective two, we thought that all the medicines sit with lumbar hyperlordotic, but there was no significant association between the types of sitting posture and low back pain. And this could be influenced by good sitting habits that practiced by them. What is good sitting habits here? These good sitting habits could be because of they practice frequent changes in sitting position, or they could have frequent stretching and also application of good ergonomics, but we did not assess those kind of good sitting postures that happen among them. And we believe that maybe they could use any of these approaches on how to reduce the tensions in the vertebra. That's how the different type of sitting postures does not show the significant difference of low back pain.
And the practicing of good sitting posture could reduce the internal loading, which helps to minimize the tension inside the. And therefore, this good sitting posture also could reduce the muscle fatigue, which minimize the pain or could reduce the pain among them. Okay. So the conclusion from this study, we found that longer hours of sitting during the ODL increase incidence of low back pain compared to the time of sitting adopted by the students, especially during the pandemic. Okay, therefore, what we need to do is that to provide some preventive measures such as posture education and active lifestyle should be conducted to create awareness and alert to the students from the low back pain. And further research investigating on the different types of sitting posture, ergonomics, and also lifestyles among the students need to be explored further because of research on the type of sitting posture especially. Okay? So with that, thank you very much for listening to the presentation. And probably you can ask yourself, are you sitting much? Or are you getting active sufficiently? All right. With that, thank you very much. And is there any questions from the floor?
Thank you, Serena, Sahari, and Lin Ping for that very interesting presentation on the effect of low back pain. I would like to open the floor for discussion if anyone has any questions about the sitting posture and the relationship of that to the low back pain.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Can I ask, how did you come up with this idea? I mean, was it influenced by the lockdown situation, or were you intended to do such a research, regardless of the COVID and before it? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for the question. My research interest is on low back pain. Okay, so most of my research is about low back pain. Okay, it's just that during COVID-19, we know that the student is, they have to undergo the ODL. And they have to spend long hours in front of the computer, because I am the lecturer as well, and therefore I know what sort of activities that students are facing and what they are doing and so on, and what they should do, right? So this triggers the idea of getting to know what about our students in relation to the low back pain and their activities during the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, this brings up the idea for conducting this kind of research, and even currently I have got a group of students conducting research post-pandemic. In related to the some of the similar issues and also some of additional issues. Hope that provide you some answers there.
Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much, Serena. I think let's move on. We are running a little bit ahead of time. We have the next presenter, who is Jeffney Yazid, who is going to talk to us about her research related to knowledge, attitude, and practices towards.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum, greeting to everyone. My name is Jeffney Yazid. With my team, Rajame, Madam Susanna, and Mr. Angga, our pleasure to be here to present our research title, Knowledge, Attitude, and Practice to Work in Sleep Injury among nurses in a public hospital. This presentation will include the introduction, method, result, discussion, and conclusion. I would like to start my presentation today with the introduction. Sleep injury in nurses. Lidl-stick injury, also known as MSI, are a cut or wound caused by contaminated needles such as hypodermic needle, butterfly needle, and so on, which is this NSI are common in a hospital setting and can lead to blood-borne pathogens such as HIV, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C. The previous study indicated that the nurses are the contribute the higher NSI in worldwide, but not in Malaysia, where the hospital officer are represent the research NSI cases in Malaysia. So therefore they have a question arise whether the Malaysia nurses have a knowledge, attitude, and practice towards NSI. One of the reasons why there is a few number of NSI among nurses, because the previous study indicated that the nurses with a better KAP can minimize the NSI cases. Nonetheless, the knowledge alone is not insufficient without a positive attitude and also the practice. Besides that, they have limited research among the Malaysian nurses because more focus to the contribute NSI, which is hospital officer. So for that, our objective of the study is to identify the level of knowledge, attitude, and practice, and also to determine the association between the KAP and the level and the demographic variables. So this is my method, which is this is a quantitative cross-sectional study which started on May to August 2021 among the medical ward in one of the biggest public hospital in Malaysia, which is the sample size using non-probability convening sampling among the nurses who grade U29 and have the 3 months experience. For the exclude, we exclude the nurses who grade 29, who working office hour and long leave because contribute to the NSI cases. For the population of the medical ward, around 504, and then after we calculate with the Rostov software, we get 208. Besides that, we also utilize the pilot study to determine the questionnaire validity and reliability around 54 nurses. For data distribution, we use the self-administration questionnaire via Google Form. Besides that, this research also already requirement about the ethical such as University, National Malaysia Research Registration, and so on. For the instrument, we are using a questionnaire which is have 49 items divided to social demography, KAP, previous study, Muhammad Dafala, and our NSI practice, which is have a good combat alpha 0.8. Besides that, the statistic analysis, we using validity and reliability questionnaire, version 27, SPSS, to verify the reliability of the questionnaire. And besides that, the other statistics such as anomaly test, descriptive, and inferential test. For the level of KAP, you can divide to low, medium, high based on the Bloom cut-off point of previous study. So if you can see on the table 1, the majority of the nurses are young female nurses below 30 years, have a diploma, and half of them have a diploma. Half of them have 5 years experience. Most of the nurses know about the policy hospital, and half of them have information about regarding hospital-based information. 2/3 of the nurses took NSI courses, and for the preventing of the blood-borne pathogen, most of the nurses are completely with hepatitis B vaccination and always practicing using glove. For the needle user, 7 to 140 users per week. For the NSI cases for previous years, as low as 5.3% only. If you can see on the bar chart, the majority of the nurses have a KAP, which is more than 80% are possessive of the competency. For the association between the social demography and the KAP level, reveal that only hepatitis B, ethylene cause, and wearing glove association with the level of knowledge. In the same time, age have association with the level of practice. So for the discussion, firstly, the strength of the study show that nurses in Malaysia have a level KAP towards NSI. Besides that, majority of them have NSR preventing practice. These findings are similar to the previous study, which is support that the nurses are the good KAP compared to other healthcare worker. Second, the weakness of the study shows that nurses are confusing between washing with the soap or water only, which is a contradict to the guideline recommendation by Ministry of Health. Besides that, half of nurses, around 50% know about the post-exposure prophylaxis, even though majority of them know about the risk of the bloodborne pathogen infection. Third, the opportunity of the study shows that nurses who take the NSI courses and know the policy hospital have a positive attitude. Besides that, the young and inexperienced nurses can be targeted for the specific NSI preventing education. This finding study support the recommendation or the suggestion of the previous study, how the important about the training and education, especially to the young female nurses. And three of the finding study show that nurses with less education have a more positive attitude. Besides that, the junior female nurses who are below 30 years and have below 5 years experience are more likely to get NSI, which is this finding study are similar to the finding in Indonesia 2014-2017, which is the nurses have higher NSI cases. For the conclusion, I would like to pass to my other speaker, Mr. Angga. Mr. Angga, the presentation is yours.
Okay, thank you, Giovanni. Our conclusion of study, the KAP level of nurses is high. However, NSI-related training must be improved because nurses who attend the course can increase their level of knowledge about NSI. The main focus should be on the needs for post-exposure prophylaxis and washing after NSI with soap or antiseptic wash and blood screening. In addition, emphasis should be placed on workplace practices such as being careful, practicing using gloves when handling needles and not recapping. I think that's conclusion, and I give back to Giovanni. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Angga. I would like to continue last and least the limitation of the study. Of course, this is a questionnaire-based study which is have the limitations such as the social disability bias, self-reporting, and the responder had a limited response option. So for the future study, recommendation to use the multiple methods such as to observe the behavior such as a checklist, or to increase the sample size which can be equal to one population in Malaysia public hospital. Last and least, I would like to thank you, my DG, Director General of Ministry of Health, for the permission to be here, and also the Muhammad Dafala, the questionnaire KAP author, and who involved in this study. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you very much, Giovanni and Angga, for that very interesting presentation about the nodal stick injuries among the nurses, which we are not usually familiar with, and it's very specific to the medical profession.
Nevertheless, I would like to open the floor for discussion if anyone has any questions to raise from this particular issue and what needs to be done. The recommendations have already been made. Of course, the nurses have to take care of themselves and be aware of the potential of needle injuries. Anyone in the audience has any questions? Doesn't look like there are any questions. So in this case, I think we will move on to the next presenter. Thank you very much again for Angga and Giovanni for that bringing this particular issue to the notice and conducting this research, which is very useful for the medical profession. Our next presenter is Mohammed Ramadan Abhamid, who is going to present his research about assessment of knowledge, physical activity, and calcium intake among female university students, which is likely to cause, as they say, osteoporosis, as it happens to many older adults. Mohammed, about osteoporosis and calcium intake.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are. It is such an honor for my friends Muhammad Ramadan Abdul Hamid, my Sarah Adlina Abdul Razak, and me myself, Muhammad Umar Ridwan, to be a part of this year's, the 11th AMER International Conference on Quality of Life. We're going to get you the new insight of our research entitled Assessment of Knowledge, Physical Activity, and Calcium Intake among Female University Students. Honorable audience, ladies and gentlemen, how many of you know what is the calcium? But I believe that many of you know what calcium is. So calcium is the micronutrient that is essential for maintaining the bone health and preventing diseases such as osteoporosis. Another question, how important the calcium is. And maybe whenever we ask the importance of calcium, people seems to be thinking a little bit how important that calcium is going to be. So please take a look at this slide. That from here you can see that calcium is related to the osteoporosis. Why? So ladies and gentlemen, osteoporosis is actually often called as the silent diseases because many people don't know that they already had it until they break their bone in a minor fall or bump. So whenever you have a sufficient intake of calcium, of course, it will help you to reduce the risk of having osteoporosis. But then there are another factor or two factors that you should notice about the osteoporosis and the relationship between these factors and the calcium and the osteoporosis as well. So ladies and gentlemen, I listed 3 factors that affect osteoporosis. The first one is that, as I told you before, it is required for us to have 800 until 1000 milligram of calcium intake for daily. And then we get to know and we get to have the knowledge about osteoporosis itself. And the last thing that we have to concern is that the physical activity that we do for the daily basis of our life.
Okay, thank you. So thank you to Dr. Ranjan. Sorry for today. So I will just make it fast. All right. So based on the literature, you know that in Malaysia, the intake of calcium is less than the recommended. Based on the previous study, you know that there are actually the intake is around 377 in which the recommended is 1000 milligrams per day. So for that, we would like to continue and do a research on the intake of calcium among female students in UiTM in China. So we want to determine the relationship between the physical activity level, the calcium intake, and the knowledge about osteoporosis towards the intake of the calcium. So for that, we have 3 specific objectives, which I will further discuss in the results section. So for this methodology, we use a cross-section study which involved 276 female undergraduate students from the university, and we use a set of self-administered questionnaire that we distributed it via online, and there are 4 sections of it. The first one will be the social demographic data, second one, knowledge about osteoporosis, third one, which is the calcium intake questionnaire. We use food frequency questionnaire, and the final section would be the level of physical activity that we use, the archive questionnaire. So all of these questionnaires were validated based on the previous study. Right, so looking into the results of this study, the characteristic of the participant, know that the age average was 21, and based on the BMI category, most of our participants in a category of normal weight. And the finance, most of the participants took the student loan. Now, looking into the first objective, in which we want to determine the level of calcium intake among the students. So based on this result, we know that the intake was 421.4 milligrams per day, which is half than the recommendation. So which is not good for them in the future because they might develop osteoporosis. and they do not meet the recommendation definitely. A majority of them, around 79%. Now, in terms of physical activity level, it's quite good because majority of our participants, they have moderate physical activity level and also high physical activity level and less of low physical activity level. And in terms of knowledge about osteoporosis, majority of them have poor knowledge about it. So this is not a good indicator, as poor knowledge might contribute to low calcium intake among them. And in terms of relationship, we can see there's a positive relationship between the knowledge on osteoporosis and physical activity level towards the calcium intake, but both of them are not significant, statistically significant. So moving on to the discussion, we know that, as I mentioned, the intake was low. It could be because of unhealthy eating habits among the university students and food insecurity, and also they knew little about osteoporosis, so they don't aware the importance of taking enough calcium intake. Moving on to the physical activity level, we know that among the female students, the physical activity level was moderate and high, and this could be due to women or female in general. They have kind of perceptions to lose weight as compared to men and to have a good body shape, especially at the young age. That's why they get involved in the physical activity more often. However, when we look and compare with the calcium intake, there's no significant difference between the calcium intake, knowledge about osteoporosis, and physical activity level. So as in conclusion, we can say that for UiTM, inshallah, the knowledge about calcium is quite low. Same goes to the calcium intake is also low, but not for the physical level. So we recommend that in the future, for these students, we should encourage and educate them on the importance of taking care of their calcium intake, because prolonged inadequate calcium intake may lead to osteoporosis in later age. And we want to prevent this in the future, as we know that at the moment we are moving towards aging population, and a majority of female has problem with osteoporosis when they reach at the age of 50 and above. That's why this study as a baseline, so that we can do some important interventions, so then in the future we can prevent osteoporosis. I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mohammed Ramadan, for that very interesting presentation. I would open the floor for discussion if anyone has a question before I ask a question that I have. Anyone has a question, please? Doesn't look like there is a question coming from the floor. I just have a small, oh, is there a question coming from the floor? No, it doesn't look like. I have a small question. Why was the study focused on female students only? Because the is there any specific reason for, because I noticed that the sample was constituted of only female students and no male students have been looked at. Does it mean that osteoporosis doesn't affect the males?
Yeah, thank you. I'm expecting this question actually by the audience, because even though I'm a male, I'm not biased, but based on the statistics, we know that the female are more often prone to get osteoporosis because of hormonal changes when they are menopause. So that's why, as a prevention, we focus on female as compared to male in this stage.
Right. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yes. Thank you for that explanation. Thank you very much for bringing the issue to the forefront of our understanding, because it does affect aged populations. We'll move to our last presenter, who is Ponrate Conchasi, who is going to talk to us about a systematic review she has done on advancing inclusive and sustainable waste management in Thailand.
Start now. Yes, please. My name is Ponrate Conchasi, and my co-author is Dr. Silpakorn University, my mentor. We came from the School of Architecture, Art and Design, Institute of Technology, Bangkok. Well, my study is about the trash waste collection system. In Thailand, we have like 1.1 kilo per person per day, which include altogether 70 million tons a year. Okay. When 2018, when China banned all the trash coming to the country, all those trash directly shipped to Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, and also India, Bangladesh. They will go to landfill or maybe to the factory, recycle factory. Waste picker is the one who is so poor and nothing to do, just pick up trash and sell it cheaply. So they met the problem with unfair price. Can you imagine? In Thailand, 170 billion US dollar value of the recycling material annually. That's a huge money. But, you know, this pyramid hierarchy of recycling chain, these poor people is down here, the waste picker, selling stuff to small shop, medium shop, trader, and recycle factory. You heard the word, trash is gold, trash is treasure. But those treasure and gold goes here to the trader, recycling factory. Why doesn't it go to the waste picker? So that's my research problem. The objective is to find inclusive solution, which include waste picker and small shops, to get a fair price. The keywords I use is recycling platform, digital platform, fair price, backhaul logistics, sustainable development goals. What I found is about 4 categories. Thailand recycling market. Most of it, when we produce waste, we just let the government sector manage it. Mostly they go to the landfill or incinerator, but behind those scenes, they got the business selling recycling stuff. And inclusive waste management, it doesn't exist because we always forget the waste picker. Digital technology related to waste management. When I review many papers, Thai papers, international papers, they have like 2,000 applications in the world, 150 something in Thailand. None of it talking about the waste picker. They are talking about the waste collection, appointment to collect the trash, or maybe give some coupon point to the household. That's all. I select mathematic systematic review, which is called realist review. I read everything about recycling. I came out with this model, realist review framework. It's too small. This one is system change, education, learning, technology, and chain agent, which I derived into my model at the end, in the conclusion. And nobody talks about the platform, digital platform, related to the poor people, waste picker. Nobody talks about that. But in my opinion, and after review the literature, the fair price here, okay. The fair price is a keyword that nobody gets. The top on the pyramid always take advantage the level, bottom level. Waste picker, so poor, they don't have money. They survive. they do their waste picking for surviving. They get the burden between the owner of the factory and the waste picker. The factory needs clean and continuous supply with a good price, but this waste picker doesn't know where to sell in good price, and lack of knowledge of how to do it clean to meet the quality that factory wants. In my finding, after review more than 20 literature in English and Thai, more than 10, my findings unfair price goes to the waste picker, no cash to buy, so poor, and they don't have any social security at all. For the small recycling shop, always the same, unfair pricing when they sell it to the bigger shop. After that, they don't have a management plan. They hire illegal workers from neighbor country, and they avoid taxation, always. And the last thing, the high cost of logistics. When they want to ship all those recycled products to the factory, they have to pay a lot in high price. Oops. Oh. Okay. Some discussion that I found out. When technology disruption comes, resistance to the innovation is there. People scared that download something in mobile phone, it might be the scamming or taking all the money from digital account, and they fear that behind those walls is a taxation, is a collecting data from their own mobile phone. Another discussion is when you do platform, and it's very popular, is oligopoly or monopoly or not. Big fish always eat the small fish. Okay. Oops. In my conclusion, digital platform could reduce waste, increase recycling rate, promote more sustainable future, which can help raising up the quality of life of waste picker and poor people when they don't have job. They just collect stuff, sell it to the center, collecting center to get cash with high price or reasonable price. Digital platform connect stakeholder all together, buyer, seller, shops, factory together, create new marketplace, and give a transparency and traceability. We use blockchain, cloud computing, IoT, sensor, whatever have to get the data, and aim to the big data, which province produce what product or material or trash, scrap most, so we'll know after the platform launch. This is my model conclusion derived from the last one I showed you. When we change the system of selling recycled product, we need to give them education and learning also how to clean, how to segregate, and how to sell, what is the taxation, and how can you improve your own poor life. Digital technology is there. Cloud computing, blockchain, I told you. The last one, the last word, change agent is the most important. Without those people, only the platform can do anything. Waste picker don't have the mobile phone. So they have to sell it to the best place near them to lower down the transportation cost. So if Thailand 77 province announced the so-called buyback center or buying hub in every province to let the poor people sell stuff in cash daily. And this chain agent could bring platform online with offline together to help the poor people and make those 170 billion US dollar annually and 6% increasing every year. Those money will go down to the poor people. Thank you.
Yes. We lost
Any
you.
question?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ponarit, for that very interesting presentation about the very critical issue of waste management in the modern world. And as you rightly said, it affects the Asian countries more than the rest of the world. I would like to open the floor for discussion if there is anyone who has any questions about the waste management techniques that he was talking about, how it is connected to poverty of the people. Anyone has any question? Doesn't look like there are any questions coming from the audience, and I think the issue has been very well presented. I would like to also draw attention to the other side of the story while we are talking about waste management. Maybe there is also a need to try and reduce the production of waste in the first place, which has become an enormous problem. And I think in some countries and in some societies, there is a huge lack of understanding about the way in which they seem to produce waste, which are coming from buildings and supermarkets and so on and so forth. So it's an interesting issue. I think we have concluded all the presentations for this session. We have had a very intellectually stimulating session. Thank you very much for all the presenters. We talked about using this to measure the psychological stress. We looked at the effect of COVID-19. We looked at physiotherapy approaches, and we looked at sitting posture and low back pain. We looked at the needle stick injuries and calcium intake and how osteoporosis is promoted by that. And finally, waste management and how that seems to be related to poverty. So it's a very wide spectrum of presentations and research which shows the dynamism of the research that seems to be coming from Malaysian and other international researchers. Thank you very much for participation in this conference and making those presentations. And I wish all of you good luck with your progress of your studies and research, and will be able to achieve what you're planning to achieve with those research. Thank you very much indeed. And with that, I think I will conclude this session almost 5-6 minutes behind time. Thank you very much indeed.
For chairing the breakout session too. Good night. Sorry?
Is there anything more to be done? Time for tea, isn't it?
Yeah. Come over for tea. Come over for tea. Go book White Palace. It's the cheapest and better hotel.
All right. See you next time.
See you next time. Goodbye. And thank you once again.
All right.
So to all the participants, as you can see on the screen, let us all have our tea break.